Today sucks. The story of my life is that I never get anything nice. You'd think that I'd learn to adjust my expectations by now. Anyway, what's new with you? Just kidding, you can't say anything. This is a letter.
I'm doing great. Our videos are making a difference.
Things have just been a little hectic.
Hello, Jorge.
I have some news about your mother.
Oh my God. I'm not a sad dog. I'm a happy dog.
People who seem happy can actually be the most depressed.
Oh no, I seem very happy.
Oh no, I'm feeling the same way. I must be terribly depressed.
Welcome to Cordkillers, the show about watching the stuff you love when you want, where you want, however you want. I'm Tom Merritt. He's Brian Brushwood.
Heck yeah, man. Live from the newly minted Diamond Club Studios in the heart of the beautiful 7-acre Schwood on the Austin city limits. We are live in our second week of new production from the new facility. But more importantly, we have better guests than ever.
Yeah, our first guest, while Brian is in a new facility, very happy to have from the SMR podcast, Robb Dunewood.
How's it going, folks? And I am not in a new facility. I'm just in my wife's office. I figured I would give you a little bit of a nicer backdrop than my basement and my yoga mat.
Oh, man, I missed the yoga mat, but that's cool. It's all right. I was about to say me too, but then that would have implied I'm also in your wife's office, which I'm definitely not. But
but our heart is there with you. So totally. You kind of are. So also call the police.
We've got Robb on the show because on SMR podcast, you were talking about the fact that you haven't cut the cord, but you think your mom has. So we can't wait to talk to you in a little bit about how that calculation is working for you.
Absolutely.
All right, let's start first with the primary target. Let's start with September 25th, Brian. Last week, The Hollywood Reporter reported that Kevin Feige will develop a Star Wars movie for Lucasfilm. That's a story in and of itself. And at that point, you would be forgiven for thinking, this is what they were talking about when they said he was too busy to handle a Spider-Man movie. Except 2 days later, on September 27th, we found out that Disney and Sony have reached an agreement on a third Spider-Man movie in the MCU. Now, if you care about these things, Disney got an increase to 25% of the equity stake. Disney will co-finance 25% of the cost. And Spider-Man also will appear in one more MCU movie. What more of you probably care about is the next Spider-Man movie will be in the MCU. It'll have Tom Holland in it, and it will arrive on July 16th, 2021, with Amy Pascal and Kevin Feige producing. There's also some talk that the Spider-Verse, the wider Sony Spider-Verse, will acknowledge details of the MCU and vice versa, Brian. It's almost as if we alluded that maybe this whole thing was just about negotiations.
This is not the time for us to pat ourselves on the back for correctly analyzing stuff from the outside.
I just had an itch. I'm sorry.
I kind of love the fact that where we're at now is very similar to how the structure of the Marvel comic books was originally laid out. Spider-Man wasn't always interacting with everybody else from the Marvel universe. He had largely his own story, but when appropriate, he showed up in other comic books, and other comic book characters showed up on his series. That's kind of what we're back to right now. There was a brief terrifying moment that we thought that one of our most beloved surprises in the MCU experiment was gone, but I think we correctly called it as this just politicking being politicking, and now I think we're in the best possible situation.
Robb, where do you stand on the whole Spider-Man thing?
Pretty much knew that this was going to ultimately be the result. There was no way they were going to let, Sony nor Disney were going to let this thing just shutter and die. So this is kind of what I've expected, and I can't wait. These movies have been awesome. I'm all in on pretty much anything Marvel. And the Sony stuff that they've been doing lately has not been horrible. So I'm all in on this.
Yeah, I think that's really the takeaway is it doesn't really matter how we got here. You shouldn't personalize companies and feel like Sony did a thing to be mean or Disney did a thing to be mean. This is just all business. And thankfully, this time, for now, it has ended up being what most fans want. We'll get one more movie out of this. Rob, I wouldn't be shocked if a couple years down the road we're having the same conversation again about Disney and Sony having to have negotiations over this. I think that's going to continue to happen because having Spider-Man come over from Sony back into Disney and into the Marvel universe was kind of unthinkable when it first happened anyway.
It was a delightful treat, and if anything, we're back into a space where the next time it happens, it could be a delightful, surprising treat. I wouldn't be surprised if going forward, the bulk of the crossover was less in any kind of real-time representation of any characters on each other's franchise, but increasingly nods and winks where it's like Sony says, hey, we're doing this adventure. It would make sense if in the background there was a Captain America poster. Can we use the likeness of Captain America in order to make this scene feel more complete? And they're like, yeah, but we have an upcoming movie where it seems like somebody should, make an offhanded comment about a web slinger that stole their watch or whatever. We would like to do that. I think it's just going to be a bunch of horse trading. And to be honest, we're going to get something weirdly closer to what I grew up with as a kid.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. This is kind of what it's supposed to be. As you said earlier, Spider-Man had his own thing going, and every now and again he would show up with the Avengers. But he pretty much was had his own thing going, and this is what I think what we're kind of getting back to. But it's still giving you that MCU flavor that we've all come to love. Yeah.
And I wouldn't be surprised if an unspoken part of this deal is that maybe an actor or even a character from the MCU shows up in a Sony Spider-Verse movie. Maybe we get, Mark Ruffalo, although the Hulk is problematic for all kinds of reasons, but maybe we get, somebody, maybe it's Thor, maybe it's Hemsworth, shows up and it's an alternate Thor in the Spider-Verse, but they get the rights to do something like that. I could see Sony saying, well, fine, okay, you can have Spider-Man for another MCU movie too, but we want something on our side, and I think that would be fun.
Yeah, I like the idea of alternate reality versions of heroes. Like, man, has it been long enough? Can we talk about things that happened in the movie Endgame? Because
I think with a signpost on it, like we just gave people, like, okay,
from the perspective of the people in Asgard, our Thor visiting them was an alternate reality future Thor that just showed up as a broken individual with warnings of the future. How great that we got to see it from our perspective with that. And I would love for them to play with that a little bit more.
Yeah, I can see that. I can see that happening. And it's, it's a happy ending. Sadly, that makes for bad coverage because, people love to have a controversy to grind their teeth on. But I feel like it's good to celebrate when things go right too.
The other thing too, is these characters that we're loving, they age and they get to the point to where they want to do other stuff. So if we start thinking about the virtual alternate universes or the Spider-Verse as we've called it, there's a lot of leeway that you can take there. So I think that the two companies they're going to work together just so that they can continue to make bucket loads of money.
I mean,
Toilet Bug brings up in the chat, he just randomly says, we want Wolverine, and all of a sudden nothing sounds more awesome than a Wolverine Spider-Man team up.
Yeah, and totally possible now that Disney owns Fox. So yeah, but like you say, Rob, I mean, it's in their best interest to cooperate because they probably make a lot more money, both of them, if they do. And we get better stuff. Now, we would like to cooperate with Disney and Sony as well. So if they would like to back our Patreon at any amount they wish, they should do so, as should you if you're not already doing it at patreon.com/Cordkillers.
Yeah, can we address this controversy? A lot of people were saying that Disney was intimidated by our outside voice, the fact that we're not supported by advertisements, the fact that we're listener supported. And some people have intimated that maybe Disney was uncomfortable with the loud, live, and independent nature of our podcast. Look, man, we're not going to say, we're going to be above all of this. We can neither confirm nor deny any of these rumors. We will say that whether you're Disney or whether you're somebody who's been listening to us for the past almost decade, telling the stories that we tell, you can support us at patreon.com/Cordkillers. Even if you're a half-man, half-eagle hybrid, we love everybody. And we want you to give us just $1 an episode at patreon.com/Cordkillers.
Yeah, we want to make it very clear that Disney, We don't feel like we won't take your pledge if you join at patreon.com/Cordkillers. And everyone who's not Disney, you can feel a little superior to Disney right now if you back us at patreon.com/Cordkillers.
Oh my gosh. Imagine when you bump into Disney at a big highfalutin Hollywood party and you're like, I see you finally jumped on the train. And they're like, what train? And they're like, the cord-killing train. Woo woo.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then there's a man-eagle riding that train with you. All right, let's talk about how to watch. So as I mentioned on the SMR podcast recently, Rob, you were talking about trying to talk your mom into cutting the cord. So let's start there. Where are you with that? What's the latest update, and why are you trying to talk her into it?
So I literally just got off of a boat on Saturday, off of a week-long vacation, and my mother-in-law was here. I still have children in the house, so she was here. My daughter does not like the word babysit because she is a young woman at this point, but my mother-in-law was here, and she left for me her cable bill / phone bill / telephone bill or internet bill. So I think she's ready to potentially make a change, and here's the reason why. She's just recently retired, and as most retirees do, or should do, they start thinking about, okay, I'm on a fixed income now. Where are my bills, and am I paying anything that I shouldn't be paying? So when she was working, it really just was an ease of just having TV and having a phone and having internet, to where she just paid a bill that was probably $200 a month. But now that she's retired, she's like, well, do I really need to pay that much? Because she uses her cell phone significantly more than she does her home phone. So the first thought was, you're single, you're home when you're home, but when you're not using your cell phone, why not just use your cell phone at home? So we showed her that we actually have, a cordless phone system that has Bluetooth. So, you call our cell phone, the house phone rings as far as she's concerned. So she thought that was pretty cool. That was the first thing to get her to think that this could be a possibility for her. And then when I showed her, it's like, well, you're paying nearly $200 a month for all three of these things. You could effectively get rid of your phone. That's going to take $55 off, just getting rid of your home phone number. So that would be one thing. And you probably could take a little bit off of your cell phone bill, just because you have a unlimited data plan that you probably wouldn't need if you were to, start just having your phone work through the internet when you're home, because she uses her phone a lot when she's home, but not so much when she's out. So that was going to save her probably $10. And it was like, well, what channels do you watch? And for her, it's really the networks that she watches. She watches the networks. And she watches, and they both have apps that you can watch, and you can watch those online. So we're thinking, if you're really not even using cable to watch all the channels that are on cable, why not just get rid of cable altogether? So we basically went from $200 down to about $50 a month that she could get into, and with bringing her cell phone bill down about $10 a month. And she is seriously contemplating doing this now. Tom, if you've ever heard me talk about my mother-in-law, she is the most tech illiterate person on the planet. So we're going to have to ease her into this over the course of months, to where we get her a Fire Stick. I absolutely know that she knows how to use the Fire Stick before I cut her cable off. And she will become like my children. It's like, I've got Netflix, therefore they have it. I have Hulu, therefore they have it. I've got Amazon Prime, therefore they have it. So
yeah, part of the family.
So we're really thinking that, between the stuff that we already own, that I'm already paying for, there's just no reason for her to continue paying for this expensive internet or cable bill, when she just doesn't watch a lot of television. She watches the things that she watches, and it's her stories that come on the the networks and HSN and QVC. So, like I said, we're going to try to make this transition maybe at the beginning of the year, and I'm going to start in the coming days actually warming her up to want to get her, a Fire Stick, and get everything set up for her, so that she has that as an option to watch stuff. But like I said, it's going to be a effort to teach her everything that she will need to know on how to do things. But lately, the Fire Stick, I just recently got a Fire TV, and I've always had a Fire Stick. I had it since they first came out, but I just never used it that often. And now that I've got a TV with it built in, I'm like, man, this is actually pretty good. You can just talk to it and tell it what you want to watch, and it'll go pull it up. So that, to me, is right down my mother-in-law's, street. That's right down her alley. So I'm thinking that we may be able to get her over to using streaming services for her television consumption and really cut down on her internet. I keep saying internet bill. We want it to be an internet bill. Right now it's a cable and television bill, but we want it to just be internet. And we think we can cut almost 70% of her cost out.
There are two things that really strike me about this. One is that, yours is a 100% cost savings proposition on this. And there are people for whom they could save a lot of money by cutting the cord. There are other people who are voracious consumers of media, and they've tallied up all the numbers, and they realize, well, it's 6 of one, half dozen another. And they realize that what they value is not so much saving some bucks, but instead the control of being able to watch what you want, when you want, on whatever device you please. I love the idea that a starting place would not be to cut the cord and then figure out how to swim, but instead get the devices and say, okay, we're going to practice for a month. You're going to try to watch everything through this box in this ecosystem. And then at the end of the month, is there anything you could think of that you couldn't figure out how to watch on this box? No? Well, guess what? Snip, and there we go.
Right. That's the only way it'll work in my situation, because if I were to try to just go cold turkey, I would be driving, I live about 110 miles from my mother-in-law, and it would be trips every day. I can't watch my stories. You need to come fix this. So yeah, we will definitely, ease into the transition. And you said 1 month. No, it'll be between now and the beginning of next year. We're going to take some time with this, make sure that we're good, because once that cable goes, or once that that cable TV goes, once that telephone goes, I don't want to have to go back. So we're going to really gradually ease into it.
Yeah, I think a lot of people are in that same situation with a relative, and that training period is essential to just get people comfortable. I'm curious, because it sounds like a lot of the stuff she watches is over the air. Would you do an antenna too for her, or are you just going to try to get everything through the Fire TV?
I will get as much as I can through the Fire TV, but just in case purposes, we will get her a nice external HD antenna, because she can pull channels. Where she lives in Ohio, she's able to pull channels from Cleveland, from Akron, from Youngstown. She can even get a channel or two from Toledo. So she can get channels as long as I get her a decent antenna. So that will be part of it, to teach her how to switch back and forth between the Fire Stick and the antenna will be something we'll spend some time going over.
Yeah, because another option eventually might be Lowcast. We'll talk about them a little later. They're not in the Ohio area quite yet. Hilariously, they're in Rapid City though. So any Rapid City folks, yeah. I
am a huge fan of Lowcast when you can get it.
Mm-hmm.
They're adding places, but I'm definitely a fan of that.
Now, the other side of this story is that you've got it where it makes sense for your mother-in-law, but you are keeping your cable. Why is that?
So for me, I am, Brian, you kind of mentioned it. For me, the cost is not the reason. It is just the pure convenience of I can go to this channel and watch what I want to watch when I want to watch it. Now I am. Every month, I'm getting closer and closer to the point where I say I am going to, cut the cord. But from a cost savings perspective, I'm already paying for Hulu and Netflix, and I'll continue to pay for that. But I actually do watch a lot of television. So I watch a lot of stuff that comes on TBS and TNT and HBO and Cinemax. And, I'm all over the place with what I'm watching. So if I start adding in these additional fees to be able to watch the things that I'm currently watching, it's like, would I save money? Yes, I would. I definitely would save money. I probably would save $20-$30 a month. But $20-$30, a month, I don't want to say that that's an insignificant amount of money, because it isn't. It's just
Right.
not in my life. It's just not worth it.
Think about it this way. What it sounds to me like what you're saying is you value the option. It's a little bit like if you go to a breakfast buffet or a Chinese buffet, he's like, hey man, I watch you come in here 3 days a week and you always go for the Kung Pao chicken and then the General Tso's. You realize that instead of paying $20 for the buffet, you could just come and order that for $17. And it's like, yeah, but that $3 difference is worth it for the knowledge that at a moment's notice, I could decide that I want to go get a soft serve ice cream or a sushi roll or whatever.
Exactly. And that's where I'm at. Like I said, I did price it out, and I would be between $20 and $30 less a month if I added the services and got rid of actual cable. But it's just at this point, it's just not worth it to me yet because I still, like I said, still have kids at the house. My wife is not ready for cord cutting. She is not ready.
Okay, now we've tapped into the heart of it. It's worth that $20 or $30 a month to not have that argument where it's just like, that is a-okay. I'm going to push that until a future day.
You have not said anything but a word. So, I am not. Those are other reasons because, believe it or not, I'm big 6'4", defensive tackle. I am into football, but not nearly as much as my wife is. My wife is a sports fanatic. So for her, it's about ESPN 1, 2, 3. It's about Fox Sports, Fox Go, NBC Sports. She is trying to watch everything that has competitive nature to it, and someone can win without it have been judged.
And I'll tell you what, we're closer than we've ever been, but that has always been the last line to anybody who wants to cut the cord is like, what about sports? And there's not been an answer. Now we have more answers than ever, but I will say...
I mean, there is an answer. You can get everything he's talking about on PlayStation View.
Correct.
But you have to then learn how to find it on PlayStation View, right?
Plus, also, quite literally, and this should not matter, but almost certainly, you're a few seconds behind the rest of the world watching on a streaming service rather than getting it, quote unquote, live on cable.
So we have a few of my closest friends. It's about 6 of us. We have a WhatsApp group where we talk about the game in real time. And one of my buddies who basically just moved and decided not to get cable, he just is now using Hulu Live. He is 14 to 20 seconds behind everything. So we're talking, so he literally can't participate in the same way because he's hearing about the play before the play happens for him. Yeah. And it's it's about, anywhere from 14, 15 seconds. That's the minimum. Sometimes he's as much as maybe a minute, 90 seconds behind where we are.
In fact, it's not sports, but a similar thing happened to me during the recent presidential debates where it's like I couldn't sync up with everybody else. I was seeing snarky tweets that weren't relevant to what I was seeing on. And then 30 seconds later, I'm like, oh, that person's ahead. That's behind. Like, look, that's another case worth the $20 or $30 a month.
Yeah. I've definitely had playoff games spoiled by my phone because the notification came through that the game was over and who had won, and I'm still watching it.
Oof.
Yeah.
Yeah. So my wife would not. She would not tolerate that at all. So that is another reason because she simply is just not ready to relinquish that remote control that gets her to every sports channel that she can possibly imagine.
Well, Rob, thanks for taking us through all that. I think it's just they were both good example, like case studies of what the trade-offs are right now.
Yeah, and here's the last tidbit I'll give you on this. And I've thought about this for my mother-in-law for several years. But what it took for her to actually get to the point to where it was something that could, that she would actually potentially do, she asked me about a Fire Stick because someone at her job had got one. And he was talking about how great it was. So, we bought a Fire Stick for her. It just never got used. So it came back and, one of the TVs, I think in my daughter's room or something like that. So it simply, was something that she had to come to it kind of on her own and is now saying, hey, son, how do I do all this stuff? Because like her buddy, Jimmy, his Fire Stick is kind of awesome. And he said that I probably could cut my, my bill probably in half, if not more. And like when I actually did the math, it's almost getting about 70% is what she would cut it.
I think that is such a key interpretation. I think that a lot of people try to share the good word of cord cutting by handing people items or gizmos or whatever, but what you're really doing is you're handing them homework. You're saying, hello, everything's fine. Here's some homework. You should get around and learn how to do this. Nobody wants to do homework. However, if somebody has a pain point, if somebody's like, man, I hate how much money I'm spending, and they're like, oh, I'm handing you a solution. And that's the important part, is figuring out how to frame everything as a solution, not as more work for them to do.
So she left the cable bill, huh? Is that the key moment where she's like,
like I said, I just got off this boat Saturday, so I got home, and she's like, "Oh, hey, son, my phone bill and cable bill are sitting on the table," and I'm like, "Yes," because that lets me know she's ready to do something. Because I've been asking her for her cable bill for a year, but the fact that she was here at the beginning of the month, made mention of how cool she thought a Fire Stick was and how can she save money, and then less than a month later her bill is now sitting on my table. That gives me license. Okay, let's go ahead and start figuring some things out. Now, I'm not, like I said, I'm not cutting her cable off yet, but we're going to add some things and see if we can ease her into it. And it's, if it's a good enough experience for her, then I would say it's almost a good enough experience for almost anyone.
Awesome. All right, folks, we're going to move along now and talk about some of those things that you can watch if you get these crazy services in Under Surveillance.
Not like real estate. It's all about location. Under Surveillance.
Netflix has officially renewed Stranger Things for a 4th season. No surprise there, but the company also signed the Duffer Brothers to a multi-year film and series deal. So that'll be interesting to see. A renewal video teaser for season 4 used the words, "We're not in Hawkins anymore." Had some international looking icons like Big Ben and the Westminster Chimes, which Big Ben's plays playing in the background. So looks like Stranger Things season 4 is going global.
Man, I would be tempted to roll my eyes at that kind of thing. Like, oh, it's not vacation, it's European vacation. But we just saw Spider-Man Far From Home and it was freaking great. So maybe this will be freaking great.
When you say Stranger Things, I'm just in. I think all 3 of them have been excellent. So I'm just spoil me and give me something. If it's another country, then so be it.
Yeah, and I'll be curious.
And monsters and people with telekinetic powers is just cool to me.
And I'm curious to see what else the Duffer Brothers can come up with too, with more film and series coming to Netflix. That'll be fun to watch too. Will Smith will star in a Netflix crime drama called The Council. Smith will play crime boss Nicky Barnes. The story's set in Harlem in the 1970s. You may know the Barnes story. It was previously told in the movie American Gangster.
We reported previously on Will Smith doing Bright, the Netflix original, which was, I believe, critically panned, but apparently did well enough that Netflix was really, really pleased. So I think this is some of the fruits of that cozy relationship that they were able to establish early on.
I'm kind of looking at this kind of sideways, with Will Smith. He has had, for an actor of his stature, he has had quite a few misses, and getting to the point where it's almost been more misses than there have been hits. It's just his hits have been so big. This seems like a role that would work for him, but I'm just, I have Netflix, so I'll see it. But I don't know that I would necessarily get Netflix to see it.
Yeah, I agree with that. And as far as the hits and misses, I think Will Smith might be entering kind of that Michael Caine territory where he's very prolific and he just keeps getting those at-bats. And a side effect of stepping up to the plate 1,000 times is you're going to do a lot of misses. You're going to strike out a lot of times. Michael Caine did Jaws 3, Jaws 4, I forget which one. But ultimately, he won't be remembered for that. He'll be remembered for those home runs out of the park. And I feel like Will Smith is playing that same game.
Right.
Yeah.
So, and they keep bringing the stuff to him. So, clearly they think that they're going to, get a hit with it. But like I said, I don't know that I would necessarily sign up for Netflix to see this, unless people were saying, "Oh, this is awesome, you've got to get it." But since I have it, there's no question that it's got Will Smith in it. He's one of the biggest actors in the last 20, 25 years. We'll take a look.
Yeah, I think Netflix looked at this amount of people will watch anything with Will Smith in it. This amount of people will watch anything that's a crime drama. Okay, that seems like a good multiplier. We just go with that. So there you go. Colin Trevorrow says that Sam Neill, Laura Dern, and Jeff Goldblum will all have sizable roles in the next Jurassic World movie. If you remember, Goldblum did have a cameo in Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom, the last one. Neill was last in a Jurassic movie in Jurassic Park 3, so he's never been in Jurassic World. And Jurassic Park 3 was the last time we saw Laura Dern, too. She only had a cameo in that one. Jurassic World 3 is due to be released June 11th, 2021.
Here's the shocking twist: is Sam Neill and Jeff Goldblum reprising their roles from Thor Ragnarok, not the original characters.
That would be amazing, and sadly not true. Now I'm really sad that that's not true.
Wouldn't that be a better movie?
I mean, I don't care how good Jurassic World 3 is going to be. What you just described would be a better movie. Yeah.
So here's my question: how long has it been since the original Jurassic Park came out?
1992. So it'd be coming up on 27 years? Yeah.
Yeah. So Earth hasn't learned yet that this is a bad idea. that's
given the fact that we've had this story for 27 years and there are still scientists actively pursuing it in real life, I would say no, the world has not learned their lesson.
Right. So it's just like I enjoyed the first three more so than I did the last ones. The last ones to me were basically just giant special effects. And don't get me wrong, the special effects were awesome. Mm-hmm. But if you give me more Sam Neill, if you give me more Jeff Goldblum, maybe there will be a little bit more story behind things.
Well, yeah, Jurassic World 1 was better for me than that, but The Fallen Kingdom definitely fell off in the second half of the movie. So, Deborah Chow has been named as executive producer and director of the Disney Plus series starring Ewan McGregor as Obi-Wan. There's no title for it yet. If you don't know, Deborah Chow has directed on Jessica Jones, Mr. Robot, American Gods, Better Call Saul, and Lost in Space, as well as an episode of The Mandalorian, which I think is where they probably said, you know what, Ms. Chow, we think we know what we want you to do for us next.
Oh, man, if only it was a name that had 6 out of 6 Grand Slam home runs in the Book of Brian. I can't, this is amazing. We've been waiting for a decent Obi-Wan story since the very first Star Wars. And man, what that pedigree, that's fantastic.
I am all in. Star Wars, Obi-Wan, lightsabers. You got me when you said Ian McGregor was coming back to play this role. So, this is, I cannot wait for this to come out.
And NBC has launched an over-the-air and streaming news network, although right now it's only streaming, targeted at the young kids, the Gen Zs and the millennials. It's called LX, which is short for Local X.
Missed opportunity, man. If they're going to launch an over-the-top service called Peacock, they should call it Lil Chick. LIL''Chick.
Really thought you were going to go a different direction with that for a second.
Nope.
Content will be created by NBC's 42 local TV stations. So it's a way for the local TV stations to get some money out of streaming. Visually rich, longer form content, local stories, complex issues, etc. And it's there right now at youtube.com/NBCLX or at LX.com. And in April of next year, local newscasts will be added along with the over-the-air broadcasts. I'm guessing it's going to go on one of those digital sub-channels, something like that.
The Egg. They could call it The Egg. Hey, man, all your favorite millennial hits, they're over at The Egg.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Rob, any of your kids dying for some local news?
No, not at all. Here's the thing. Cheddar is kind of working.
Mm-hmm. Kind of. Yeah.
So maybe they can figure something out. Just make sure you've got millennials working on it, because I have no clue as to what they're interested in these days.
So you're saying that LX could be the MSNBC to Cheddar's CNBC?
I'm not saying that. I think that's what they're hoping.
That would be overstating. Got it.
Yeah, I'm not saying that. I think, but they're wishing that is what the case.
That might be the idea. Anyway. Yeah. I got a bunch of other notes here. Netflix and the BBC are co-producing a 3-part natural history documentary called Life in Color, narrated by Sir David Attenborough, focusing on how color plays a role in animal interactions. That's coming in 2021. Ellen DeGeneres is producing 4 new shows for HBO Max, 3 of which were ordered straight to series. Those are Ellen's Home Design Challenge, First Dates Hotel, and Little Ellen, an animated children's series. There's one in development, which is a documentary series called Finding Einstein, about finding really smart people. Variety says Hulu will not be moving forward on Marvel's Ghost Rider, starring Gabriel Luna. Instead, Hulu will continue with Hellstrom, which is on the way, as well as shows based on Howard the Duck, MODOK, Hit Monkey, and Tigra and Dazzler. And of course, Runaways returning for season 3, December 13th. The BBC dropped a trailer for a new 3-part miniseries production of War of the Worlds coming this autumn. Don't know if it's showing up anywhere else, though. Apple TV Plus, which is just a month away from launching on November 1st, released trailers for 3 of its kind kids and family series: Ghost Rider, Helpsters, which is a Sesame Street series, and Snoopy in Space. And finally, a new trailer for the Breaking Bad movie Camino came out early last week. Camino coming to Netflix October 11th.
Did you check out that trailer, Tom?
I did. Had a few more beats than the teaser that we talked about last week. Didn't do anything to change my opinion, which is I can't wait to watch this movie.
Yeah. And as we've talked before, like once I get over the hump and I know for a fact I'm going to see it the moment it comes out, I lose interest in those little tidbits.
So I never, believe it or not, I never got into Breaking Bad.
Mm-hmm.
I've seen episodes and they were really good. It's just one of those things I just never got into it. So when I watched the trailer, I had no clue as to what was going on. But it looked like it was really good. But so tell me, will you have to see the series before the movie will make any sense?
I'm going to guess that they're going to say no. They're going to say that it's a standalone movie. But I bet that if you watch it as a standalone movie, you'll be all like, that was all right. Whereas if you're a fan, you're going to be like, oh my God, I can't believe in that moment where that guy I remember from season 2 did the thing.
It's not perfectly fair to say until we watch it, but I'm with Brian. I think
this is just my bet. I'm not saying this is me speculating.
Yeah. And man, we were talking about before the show, Sir David Attenborough, 95 years old, still kicking.
Can we talk about, like, in an age where people sign away we literally have a new Star Wars movie coming out where, the likeness of Carrie Fisher is going to be used after, posthumously. My guess is everything from CGI effects and all that stuff. David Attenborough, Sir David Attenborough, exists not only as a person and as a voice, but also as a brand. Do you think it's the craziest thought for me to have? At the age of 95, I'm certain that they're already doing all kinds of cleaning up on his audio to get it crisp and precise, speeding stuff up or whatever. But at what point do they come up with the identifiable fingerprints and negotiate? Again, for all I know, maybe this happened behind the scenes. It doesn't seem like it would be the weirdest thing for us to have David Attenborough narrated specials long after he's no longer with us.
Oh, yeah. I mean, that's only about the legality of it. Amazon announced that you'll be able to have Morgan Freeman be on your Amazon Echo last week. So, the technology is already there. You can do it. It's just a matter of whether they can get the rights from the estate, or in this case, before he's not dead yet. So, lock that up while he's still alive.
What was the tech demo that we saw from Adobe? What was that? Voco. That's right. So it'd be so easy. I mean, it just seems like he would, just write that check and then, I don't know.
And they have 65 years of tape. So
yeah,
no shortage.
He said every word at some point.
Every phoneme. Yeah.
He said every.
Yeah, for sure. All right, let's talk about things we've had our eyes on, something we watched recently that we loved. And we always like to start with our guests. Rob, has there been something you've been watching lately?
So I just got into a new television series. I can't think of the actor's name, but he played Luke Cage.
Oh, yeah.
It's called Evil, and I'm only one episode in, and the premise of this show is it's investigators who are basically trying to prove whether or not something is a hoax or something is I don't want to give away the plot, but is something potentially like a miracle, or is there a demon, or is there something that's driving things that are evil that are happening in the world. And one episode in, I am all in. Usually it takes me 3, but it was actually pretty interesting to me. So Evil, and I don't even know what channel it comes on because I didn't watch it live. I watched it stream. But so that tells you kind of where we're getting to. But
I looked it up. His name is Mike Coulter.
Michael Coulter. You're absolutely right. But it was it was really interesting. This particular episode that I watched, because it's like they're not out trying to prove that, demons exist or angels exist or miracles exist. They're trying to disprove them. For the church, because the church has such a backlog on everybody calling everything a miracle or everything. So their role is to go out and say, no, this is not what you said it was, and it's really interesting because it's almost like they are detectives working with the authorities on crime, disproving or proving potentially that things may not be what they necessarily appear.
So it's like a reverse X-Files, where it's like they keep trying to, instead of trying to believe that it's out there, they're trying to disbelieve that it's out there, and it's like, dang it, it might be out there.
Well, the premise is that if you can you can believe, but you can still disprove the things that aren't, what you believe. But it's really interesting because there's 3 investigators. 2 of them absolutely don't believe it. One does. So it's an interesting play. And once again, we're only 1 episode in, so there's a lot of character development that's going on. But just the premise of the show, it's kind of like a buddy cop show, but it's just about things that potentially might be, supernatural or just somebody is just really evil and psychopathic. So it's an interesting show. Like I said, I'm 1 episode in. It usually takes me 3. I'm all in. I will probably watch the entire series unless it just takes a hard left at some point in the upcoming series.
Cool.
And looks like it's available on CBS, so CBS All Access if you don't have access to CBS.
And that is where I watched it because I did not watch this thing live.
Yeah, gotcha. All right, Brian, what about you?
Dude, I made my kids watch War Games, and it was really surreal because War Games remains a very well-crafted narrative, very simple, but man, oh man, is it of its time. And it's a different experience. All of the shorthand that mattered to us when we were younger watching it, all the way even through the 80s, the 90s, even the turn of the century, a lot of that breaks down. When you have to constantly pause the video because your kids are asking unironically, what's that? And you say, oh, that's a rotary phone. And you have to explain what that is. What's that? That's a modem. And he's explaining about the phone tones. Like, why are they like that? He's like, oh, well, let me tell you about the Cold War. And they're like, well, what are they afraid of? And they're like, okay, let me explain existential thermonuclear annihilation. Like, it was really bizarre how little, and to be honest, it's kind of wonderful how little of that movie survives. But because what made it work at its time was that it didn't need to say much because we got it. We're all afraid of annihilation. We're all afraid of technology's role in outsourcing human jobs to machines. But in a world where nobody gets those things, it was very laborious and very bizarre. It was a fascinating experience. And in fact, if anybody is at home, like me, has warm fuzzies about that movie, please share it with your children and let us know at cordkillers@gmail.com whether or not they just got it and went along with it, or whether it was problematic how many times you had to stop and explain things.
That's really interesting. Yeah, because most of the things that make that movie work are historical, right?
Yeah, well, I mean, they're now ancient histories to most people.
Yeah. Wow. Well, I've been watching a lot of baseball as the baseball season and the pennant race wound up, and we were getting towards the end of the season. So and the hockey season beginning. So I basically on PlayStation View just flip back and forth between the MLB channel and the NHL channel. And let me tell you, so smart of these leagues to do this, because I'm like, if my team isn't playing, I'm just like, you know what? I'll just see whatever game they have or highlight show they've got on those channels. But I did go to see Dad Astra, the Brad Pitt movie.
Did you say Dad Astra?
Oh, I'm sorry. Did I? I apologize. Ad Astra. First half of the movie, I was pretty impressed by the cinematography. I thought the acting was good. I liked the little world building touches of having Virgin fly you to the moon in on a rocket, but in the kind of mundane airplane travel way of, you know, having to board with people you don't know and all of that, and get your boring safety announcements. The fact that he paid $120 for a pillow pack without blinking an eye, it was really nice. Like, oh yeah, prices keep going up to the point where that's not really going to be that much money by then. That's always the way it works. But about halfway through, it just kind of fell apart for me, and I started to get a little bored. So it was fine. It ended up being fine on my movie scale.
Here's
and kind of pretty, I guess.
the things that are genuinely good. I do think it was pretty. I do think it was well executed visually. I would have appreciated at least a nod to the reduced gravity on Mars and the moon. Give us a little bit of kind of an expanse thing there. They didn't do that. That's fine because it's probably not relevant to the story. If you view it as a collection of, say, 7 5 to 15 minute short stories in science fiction, I think each one stands on their own. I think the world building is fantastic. I think I'm going to use air quotes here, plot, the narrative through thread was very, very weak. And there's a lot of, well, because we told you he was like this, that's why he's doing that. And I was like, but I was left more.
And then things where the science wasn't right, which sometimes I'll forgive if everything else is great. Then those things started to bug me, and I'm like, well,
and to me, that's a hint. And we go back to this all the time. The pivot point is Men in Black. If I could watch Men in Black and forget to bother to think about physics, then that means a movie has cast its spell, and I'm in for the ride. If I'm thinking about the physics of all this stuff, then that means the movie didn't do its job of casting its spell and getting me along for the ride.
Definitely. All right, Bryce, what should we be on the lookout for?
Hey, it is fall TV season, and I thought it'd be a good week to let everybody know about 2 shows that are coming back. Just this past week, The Good Place came back for its finale 4th season. That's showing up on Hulu every week for the current season, but the 3 previous seasons are on Netflix, so it's kind of split where that library is. But that's starting to air now. There's probably 10 or 13 episodes this season, so it's a good time to get in because it's almost done. Speaking of things that are almost done, there's also Mr. Robot, which is coming back on Sunday on USA. The back seasons of this are on Amazon Prime Video, but we don't know quite yet if Mr. Robot's going to be streaming somewhere because USA is a cable network. But both really well-regarded shows. Both shows we will probably discuss on It's Spoilerin Time every week.
Yep.
So keep an eye out for those and keep them on your lookout. Hey.
If you got something we should be on the lookout for, email us cordkillers@gmail.com. Real quickly, before we get to the front lines, I just want to remind people that I will write you a letter every week and just tell you what I've been doing, what I'm thinking about, what I've been writing. It's called Free Tom Newsletter at freetomnewsletter.com. It's so much fun because a lot of people have taken up my invite to just respond to it. It's just an email. It has my email address on it. And if you respond to it, you can just send me a note being like, hey, here's what I think. And I can respond back. It also includes links to all the stuff I do, all the Daily Tech News shows, Cordkillers, Spoilerin Time, Sword and Laser, all that stuff. So yeah, if you want to just get a note from me and to exchange some info, freetomnewsletter.com.
Can I double down on this real quick? I explain to people oftentimes when we meet in person and they talk about how like, oh, I've been watching your stuff for 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 years or whatever. And then I remind them that the entire time we've been having a real friendship, it's just been a one-way friendship. And every so often there's the opportunity to make it a two-way friendship. And oftentimes it's at conventions or if somebody happens to be in Austin and then we bump into each other. This is an opportunity for you to have it be a two-way friendship anytime you feel like it, because it really is Tom writing it. It really is Tom's email address. And occasionally he's going to say something that you know something about, or that you're interested to hear more about, or that is going to be exactly tied into something happening in your life. I sign up at Free Tom Newsletter specifically so that you have the option of converting this one-way friendship into a two-way friendship at any given moment.
I mean, seriously, now I want to sign up to your newsletter.
Well, you should. You can go to scamstuff.com. Just sign up for the free thing. It's fine.
All right, let's move on to the front lines.
Front lines.
We mentioned Locast earlier. That's the nonprofit that streams local television stations under a copyright law exemption for signal boosters. We've mentioned previously on the show that it was sued in July by ABC, CBS, NBC, and Fox, who say it is misrepresenting itself as a nonprofit and instead is really secretly benefiting carriers like satellite TV services. Friday, Locast filed a counterclaim lawsuit in U.S. District Court in New York, alleging that the broadcaster's lawsuit is, quote, objectively baseless, and that they have colluded to limit public access to over-the-air signals, quote, that they are statutorily required to make available for free. The Locast filing claims that Google wanted it or warned it that it faced punishment by the broadcast networks if Google included Locast as part of YouTube TV. So basically turnabout saying, you're saying we're doing all this skullduggery. We think you are the ones doing the skullduggery, and we're going to have a judge prove it. Or we're going to prove it to a judge, I guess.
Would this be a fair metaphor? Imagine there's a Wendy's, and next to it opens up a free soup kitchen. Free soup kitchen runs on donations. Wendy's says, you are being funded by, let's say, we know that one of your donors is probably McDonald's, and they're probably only giving you money for your free soup kitchen so that you could reduce demand at our Wendy's, and we're going to sue you, Soup Kitchen, for providing all this free soup and not allowing us to sell our delicious 190 per unit calorie per unit chili.
There's that's pretty close. I mean, there's something more along the lines of being a beef supplier, I guess, and somebody wanting to get a cheaper deal on beef because the beef that the broadcast networks have is we can't charge as much to DirecTV and Dish because they keep threatening that they'll just tell their users to use Locast instead.
Yeah, that doesn't hold a lot of sway. Rob, are you impressed with any of these arguments?
I like your argument, but this is what it comes down to. You've got networks that are mandated by law to do some things for free, to have the access to do the things that they're doing for pay. And they figured out a way to monetize it. And now people who really want to get it for free, as the law says you should be able to, they're trying to get in the way of that because they want to monetize that thing that should be free by law. It's just upsetting. And Tom, you know, if you had Chris from our show on here, he would be raving lunatic, complaining about this right now.
Oh yeah.
But it's just like, they're supposed, these airways are public airways, and they found a way to monetize it, and they don't want to let people get what is intended to be free to them. And it's, it just really bugs me.
YouTube,
I mean, I get it.
Oh, go ahead.
I get it. No, go ahead, Brian.
YouTube TV has arrived on most Fire TV devices. Amazon and Google reached an agreement earlier this year that Prime Video on Chromecast and YouTube that put Prime Video on Chromecast and YouTube back on Fire TV devices. The YouTube TV app works on all except for the first generation of Fire TV devices. Maybe 17 people shouting hooray right now?
I can't tell. YouTube TV has a lot of people signed up for it. I assume that those people don't use a Fire TV or they wouldn't have signed up for it. So I don't know. There are a lot of Fire TV users who are like, man, I've been waiting for YouTube TV. I don't know. Maybe your mother-in-law, Rob, will be a YouTube TV subscriber.
Not if it's not coming on the Fire Stick. So the fact that it is,
well, no, it is coming to the Fire Stick.
Maybe it's a possibility.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that's actually a really good point.
It could be a possibility.
It makes me realize that the immediate effect, it's not like there's a dam bursting right now of energy, but instead things that were not an option will become an option to many more people over the next years.
Yep. Mm-hmm. Wall Street Journal says that Apple is talking to theater chains about carrying some of its Apple TV Plus films in theaters. This is a common practice for streaming services. We talk about Amazon and Netflix putting their movies in theaters, even in limited runs, because they want to get awards consideration. For instance, to get Oscar consideration, you have to run your movie in qualifying theaters for at least 7 consecutive days with 3 showings daily. Generally, companies will get landmark theaters or art theaters in multiple places around the country to do that, but they won't usually get into the AMCs and Cinemarks because they don't want to give the full 90 days that those big theater chains want. Apple supposedly hired former IMAX head of entertainment Greg Foster as a consultant on the theater release strategy. I'm not guessing that means they'll break the 90-day thing. I'm not thinking that it means they'll do the 90-day thing, although Amazon has in a couple of cases. It'll be interesting to see what they do, though.
I feel pretty strongly like there's two different stories we're talking about. One is the 90-day theatrical release window before it goes to cheaper surfaces and video on demand. I do feel like that is on the chopping block. That there's no way that can survive in a give it to me now world that we live in. However, I do think that the limited theatrical release is so it's not expensive to do. Everybody who worked on the movie is going to love the experience of going and watching it in a movie theater and having real audiences there. I feel like that might stick around pretty much forever. I think that the Oscars will never give that up as a requirement, and that we're going to continue to have at least some kind of version of the movies as part of the total life cycle of every movie that comes out.
Yeah, I agree with you, Brian, on that. The Oscars are never going to let this go, even though award shows are they've been tanking lately, including the Oscars. They don't even have a host anymore, but this is one I don't think they're willing to let go. A movie is a movie that should be watched in a movie theater, and if you want to be, considered for that, then you have to get in line. So I think you're right. We're probably going to see that 90-day window around for the foreseeable future.
Yeah. Apple released tvOS 13, which adds multi-user support, a refreshed home screen with full-screen video previews, a control center, a new picture-in-picture option. tvOS also supports Apple Arcade, which also includes support for Sony's DualShock 4 controllers and Microsoft's Xbox wireless Bluetooth controller. This is, I think that last part is the most important one, man, making it so all controllers are useful. Whatever your favorite interaction is, you get to have it.
Yeah, for video games, certainly, especially Apple Arcade. For TV, I feel like that multi-user support is huge because now Eileen and I don't have to share a watch history. Up till now, if she watches something on her own Apple TV, it won't show up on the one in the family room because that has my account. So now we can swap that back and forth. But they took away the killer feature, in my opinion. The killer feature for me was I turned on the TV. If it was on the Apple TV input, I had a strip across the top that was like, here's what you need to watch, Tom. And I just would go in and be like, oh, the Cardinals are playing. Oh, wait a minute. There's the latest episode of Cheers in my Cheers rewatch. And I would go right in. Now they don't have that on the main page. You have to click into the Apple TV app to get that. And I think I might start to drift away to using Roku and Fire TV more now because that's the way they were tricking me into using Apple TV all the time is because it made it so easy.
They offered you a decision. They handed you homework. I
know they did, even if it's just pushing a button, Rob.
I'm anti-Apple.
We do need to give you that moment to express that. That's fair.
Yeah. Allison Sheridan is working on me.
I know.
She works on everyone, but I am not the fan of Apple.
NBC Universal and Hearst have announced their stations will be selling ad time based on total viewer impressions instead of traditional ratings. More stations are expected to follow, and national TV expects to start counting out-of-home audiences, bars, offices, hotels, etc., that historically have been left out of this. The push for the changes have to do with programmatic ads that wish to reach a particular audience more than just large numbers. So it's not so much that they feel like all of this watching on your tablet or in a bar will change the numbers significantly. It's that we have advertisers that want to reach pregnant moms who like to work out. That's how they slice and dice these things. And having more sources for that information means that they'll have better sales. That's the way I'm reading this anyway.
Yeah, it's it's weird to say that this is quote unquote good, but it's good. It's good for creators because it means that more people are going to be comfortable spending ad dollars to support great video art because they're going to know that their message that they're stapling onto it is going to be seen by the right people. I think it's good all around.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm with you guys on this. It's definitely a way to target your marketing. So people are going to pay more for it. And then people won't be bothered by it. I mean, if you fit the category, you probably don't mind the ads that you're being served. So
yeah, less
I think
bugs.
this will be
sure. Definitely.
Fleabag creator Phoebe Waller-Bridge, whose Amazon original Fleabag cleaned up at the Emmys, has signed a 3-year deal with Amazon. Waller-Bridge will create and produce new shows to appear exclusively on Prime Video. She'll continue to executive produce Killing Eve and has a show called Run coming to HBO in 2020.
Yeah. Congratulations, Phoebe Waller-Bridge, on getting that Amazon money. Congratulated Amazon on getting the hottest property in town since the Emmys. Everybody wins.
Yay!
All right, let's get to our dispatches from the front. Michael from I Wish It'd Cool Off in Texas writes, so far, I have not seen any of the pre-roll ads on my DVR recordings on my TiVo, but after recently paying $400 for an all-in forever over-the-air TiVo DVR, so I don't have to watch commercials if I don't want to, and if TiVo throws their own ads in front of that DVR recording, even while giving me an option to conveniently skip everyone else's ads, that is a load of horse hockey.
Yeah. Oh man.
Michael pulled out at the last minute from saying I will be leaving TiVo, right?
Well, I mean, I've certainly
because he already bought the device.
Yeah, it certainly has every right to be mad about it, and maybe it is horse hockey. But also keep in mind that the expectation for TiVo was, for the majority of its life, not that it would edit out commercials, but that it would start a commercial and you had the opportunity to press one button and bypass it, which is exactly still where you're at. The only thing is, very recently in the last few years, you got a little bit cozy with the idea of that they won't even show up because they'll just get snipped out. So, but also $400 is a lot of money, so I don't mind you being upset about that.
Yeah, there's a lot of folks going to be upset about it. And if you're unfortunate to where you spent that $400 to get the lifetime, as we would say on the SMR podcast, got them.
Jesse writes in saying, hey, Tom, Brian, and guest.
Yeah.
He wanted to weigh in on our previous discussion about YouTube's video recommendation engine and human interaction. He says he has the Google Opinion Rewards app on his phone, and that it usually earns him 10 cents to 50 cents to answer quick little surveys every so often. They started off as product surveys and commercials, but lately he's been getting a lot of YouTube surveys about the videos he's recently watched and potential videos to show after. It asks, based on the freeze frame and title, if it would make a good recommendation, and why not. The algorithm is still picking the videos, but they do have a way to have basic human corroboration without paying an intern $70,000 a year to watch YouTube. Thanks for all the great work. That's a really interesting take on that. I didn't even know that was a tool that a lot of people were using these days. As an independent creator, that sounds like something I would sign up for in a heartbeat. If I could A/B test or ABCDEFG test my titles and thumbnails, that might be something that I end up focus grouping for the content going forward.
Yeah, it sounds like some kind of mechanical Turk thing. Go ahead, Rob.
Yeah, I just want to say this would be awesome for content creators because, the title of something can mean the difference between somebody watching, somebody listening, somebody reading, or somebody not. So if you can test that and get it just right, you really could make some moves, with this type of technology. So I am interested to see where this goes. By the way, people in our chat room are like, what internship pays you $70,000? I want that internship.
I mean, man, I think that's not the craziest thing to say for like a Bay Area thing. Also,
it might be for Silicon Valley. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
All right, folks, that is the end of our show, sadly. But Robb Dunewood, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you guys for having me, and I will apologize now for forgetting that the sun sets on the east sooner than it does on the west. Because you probably can barely see my face at this point because my natural light has left me.
You do have kind of like an uplit murderous vibe right now. You look like you're telling us a ghost story. It's pretty great.
I just happened to notice that. It's like, man, it's pitch black dark outside right now, and you guys can't see my face any longer.
The audio people won't even notice. It'll be fine. If folks want to find out what you got going on, where should they go?
smrpodcast.com. That's where you'll find myself, Chris Ashley, Rod Simmons, where you've got three guys who are all tech executives at some point in our careers, and we talk about tech like guys would talk about football or basketball or whatever your favorite sport is. So smrpodcast.com. We've got a lively community with a Facebook group you can join if you have a real account. Might take us a little while to add you, but come check us out over there.
Excellent. Yeah, I highly recommend it. It's a regular listen for me. smrpodcast.com. Don't forget our website is cordkillers.com. Our email address is cordkillers@gmail.com. And we're live on twitch.tv/Night Attack, which is also carried on diamondclub.tv Mondays at 7 p.m. Eastern, 4 p.m. Pacific. We'll see you again next week.
Hey guys, Brian and Tom here, and it's just the same old message at the end of the credits, just like always.
That's right, Brian. Nothing new here except your name showing up.
Oh my gosh,
because
I've got a
you
name.
just supported us on Patreon.
Yeah, all those $5 donors, look at that. That's your name in pixels. We're gonna make you famous, kid. Put your
There's
name in
some
pixels on
classic
the internet.
names in there, but some of you are new. Some of you aren't there. It's sad. What can they do, Brian?
I mean, they could go to patreon.com/cordkillers and pledge $5 an episode and be one of these amazing people, like this one.
Amazing.
Oh, look at that name right there.
Diamond Club hopes you have enjoyed this program.